Hey guys, welcome back. So we're looking at today is 2.3, building the perfect square. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So first and foremost, we're looking at graphing lines using the intercepts. So what we want to take and do is find the x and the y intercept and then graph the equation. So we've got a few different ways to have our equations wrote out. So I'm going to do a couple of these with you. So for number 3, we have 3x minus 7y equals 21. So to solve for the x-intercept is when our y value is 0. So that means we're going to take and do 3x minus 7 times 0 equals 21. So we plug a 0 in for the opposite variable that we're looking for the intercept of. So we're looking for the x-intercept, so we plug a 0 in for the y value because that's when we have an x-intercept, is when y is 0. So the 7 times 0 goes away, so we have 3x equals 21. Divide both sides by 3, so x equals 7. So we have an x-intercept at 7. So that means, let me bring this down. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and make a point. There's our x-intercept. Now we do the same thing for the y-intercept, except instead of plugging a 0 in for y, we're going to plug a 0 in for x. So we're going to have 3 times 0 minus 7y equals 21. The 3 times 0 goes away. It's just 0. So now we have negative 7y equals 21. Divide by negative 7 from both sides. Because remember, what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. And so 21 divided by negative 7 is negative 3. So our y-intercept is at negative 3. So we come here to the y-axis and we go down 1, 2, 3, make our point. And then our line is going to be, mine's a little rough, but it's going to look something like this. So your guys' lines will look a lot better than mine, obviously, but this is our line for this. It's our physical line on the graph for this equation of the line using the intercepts. So sometimes, depending on how an equation is wrote, it's a little easier to take and graph it using the intercepts rather than doing it from y equals mx plus b form and using your y-intercept and slope to solve. Now, the next one we're looking at is number 6. So this one looks a little different. We have y equals negative 6x plus 6. So if we solve for the x-intercept, remember that's when we plug in a 0 for y. So we're going to have 0 equals negative 6x plus 6. So we have to subtract this 6 away. Goes away here. So we have negative 6 equals negative 6x. Divide by negative 6. So we end up with 1 equals x. So our x-intercept is 1. So we go over 1 on the x-axis and make our point. Now, for the y-intercept, we have y equals negative 6 times 0 plus 6. Well, this negative 6 times 0 is just going to go away, so we're left with y equals 6. So then we come over here, we go on the y-axis, up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, make our point, and then now we'll connect these two dots. Attempt to anyways. All right, so there is the line for our equation. Now, obviously, this line is also in slope-intercept form, so we could have plotted the slope of plotted the y-intercept of 6 and then done a negative 6 slope, so go down 6 and over 1 to find our next point, which would have actually given us, our x-intercept. So this is how we find our x and y-intercept. So to find our x-intercept, you plug a 0 in for y. To find our y-intercept, you plug a 0 in for x. All right, the next thing we're looking at. is what's known as completing the square. So what we're going to do first is multiply, and we're going to show each step and circle the pair of like terms before we simplify it to its trinomial. So we are going to do number 7 together. So x times x, remember we're using FOIL, so x times x will give us x squared. X times 5 will give us 5x. 5 times x will give us 5x, and 5 times 5 will give us 25. Now, here are our like terms. So we have our 5x and our 5x in the middle. Now, our final answer is going to be, as we combine those, x squared plus 10x plus 25. Now, this answer right here goes to number 7, not number 11. I know they didn't give you a lot of space for writing on 7, 8, 9, and 10. So do your best to fit it all in there since you have to show your work. Now, for number 11, after you've done 8, 9, and 10, you're going to notice something about that middle number, the b term. So this 10 here, or essentially the part that you circled each time. It should be the part that you circled that gets you your b term. So what it wants you to do is to write a rule for finding the coefficient b of the x term, the middle term, when multiplying and simplifying our binomial in this form, ax plus q squared. So using this, what do we do to find the b term? Well, if we look at this, we'll actually talk through this right now. If we look at this, we had 5x plus 5x, which got us 10x. So we're using the value, the q value, and we're doing what to it? We're going from 5 to 10. We doubled it. So 2qa, because then we also include our variable there. So we need to have the a because it's also whatever comes from there as well. Okay? All right. Next. In problems 12 through 17, fill in the number that completes the square, then write the trinomial as the product of two factors. So writing it as a product of two factors, that just means writing it like this. So writing it as 9x plus 1 quantity squared. That's writing it as two factors. So we're going to do 14 together. So how we find this last value to complete the square is we take our b term and we're going to divide it by 2. So we're going to do 16 divided by 2 equals 8. Now, at this point right here, we can actually do our factor. So we're going to have x plus 8 squared. So there's how we factor it using two factors to show the trinomial. Now, to find our missing value, our c value, to complete this square, we need to take and square the 8. So 8 squared is 64. 64 completes the square. So you will always take the b term and divide it by 2, and then square it to get your c term. And the b divided by 2 will always be what goes here where this 8 is, every single time. Okay? All right, now in problems 18 through 26, we're going to do the exact opposite. So instead of finding the c term, now we're actually going to look for the b term. So I'm going to do a couple of these with you. So for 22, so 22 and 24 are the two I'm doing with you. For 22, we have 49, or we have x squared plus bx plus 49. So we're going to take this 49, and if we think back up here, to get our c value, we squared the division of our b value. So if we're undoing this, we're going to take the square root of 49, which is 7, and then we're going to multiply that by 2, which gets us 14. So our b value is 14, and how we'll factor it is x plus, remember, this value here after we square root will give us that value. So we're just undoing what we did up here. So here we divided by 2 first, then we squared, we got our C value. Down here, we're going to take the square root and then multiply by 2 to find our B value. That term in the middle, though, that you get, so the 8 or the 7, that is the term you're going to use when you write out the trinomial as a product of two factors. Now, 24 obviously looks kind of complicated. We have a fraction here. Works the same way. Take the square root of 25 fourths. Square root of 25 is 5. Square root of 4, I don't know why the 5 isn't writing. There we go. Square root of 4 is 2. So that gets us our factor, x plus 5 over 2 squared. Now, we take the 5 over 2 and we times it by 2. The 2's cancel, so we're left with just 5. So our B value is 5. So essentially, the 24, 25, and 26 are going to be a little bit easier. You know, no matter what, this term is going to be over 2, and it's just whatever your numerator is, take the square root of that, and that'll get you your answer. All right, last but not least, find the intercepts of the graph of each equation. State whether it's an x or y intercept. So we have just y equals negative 4.5. That means this is a line that only ever crosses the y-axis, which means it only has a y-intercept. So it's the y-intercept. And it's negative 4.5. So these are fairly easy. It's all about thinking what they look like on the graph. So essentially, it kind of gives you its answer in the question. All right, your keyword for this lesson is square. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Remember, your keyword is square. And really make sure you get this completing the square. If you have any questions, please do ask, because it's going to be very important later on that you understand how to do this. We'll use it for more complicated things. So keep that in mind and ask questions if you need to. All right, bye guys. Have a great day.